And now I'd like to ask Pottendal Mukundan, who's the director of IMB, the International Maritime Bureau, probably needs no introduction, but I will introduce him. I've known him a long time. We first met a very long time ago when the centre of piracy was actually, I think, in the Malacca Straits, and one of the big concerns was phantom ships. And I happened to be working in Hong Kong at that time. Anyway, Muku, he began his career at sea, and after that he did a BSc in Nautical Studies at Plymouth and an MBA at Cranfield. In 1981, he joined ICC, International Maritime Bureau, when it was first formed as an investigator. He's investigated many maritime insurance claims, including frauds from charter party failures, diversion of cargoes, phantom ships, hijackings, and container thefts. He's written a lot of papers on fraud and malpractice in shipping and trading, and given expert evidence in civil and commercial and criminal cases around the world. He became the assistant director of IMB in 1987 and the director in 1996 and the director and CEO of its holding body ICC Commercial Crime Services in 1999. He's a member of the editorial advisory board of the World Maritime University's Journal of Maritime Affairs, and he's going to talk to us today about the Piracy Reporting Centre and intelligence sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'd like to, first of all, thank Seatrade for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. And in the next 10 minutes or so, I'll take you for a quick whirlwind trip through the information that the Piracy Reporting Center of the IMB puts out and how we work, giving examples. And I hope that will add to the debate today. So I'll be looking at the role of the IMB Piracy Reporting Center, the worldwide numbers, the hotspots, types of attacks, with a focus on the two key areas, which is the Gulf of Guinea in West Africa and the Horn of Africa along the East Coast, Somalia. A few remarks about the response from governments and the navies and the response from the vessels themselves. So the Piracy Reporting Center is the only 24-hour manned center which receives reports of attacks from shipmasters or owners at the time of the attack, wherever they are in the world. There are now regional centers. Marlow is one, UK MTO is the other, which do collect the information on a regional high-risk area, in regional high-risk areas. But the IMB Piracy Reporting Center, which has been around for 20 years, has been collecting information from anywhere in the world. The great advantage is that we don't keep any information back. Everything that comes to us is immediately, without any reservation, transmitted to law enforcement agencies, navies, coast guards, police in different parts of the world so that they are aware of it, and then we try and follow up to see what they have done with it. We produce reports which you have all seen, which often sometimes forms the basis for a lot of intense debate and sometimes change in governmental policy towards this crime, which takes place against a foreign seaman on a foreign ship carrying a foreign cargo and is in some cases just an inconvenience to the public prosecution authorities in the country concerned, particularly when law enforcement resources are scarce. So if you go to our map, you will see this map, which is the live piracy map, and you'll see where it takes place around the world. This year so far, there have been 269 attacks as of yesterday, 26 hijackings, 428 hostages, and 4 crew members killed. But first of all, let me give you a handle of what's happening on the west coast of Africa in the Gulf of Guinea. There were 48 attacks this year, I'm sorry for the statistics. I've just been given the task of this very boring part of the presentation on piracy, but I'll try to make it, try to go through it as quickly as possible. Of the Gulf of Guinea, 48 attacks, there were 10 hijackings and at least 2 deaths. And the really serious issues are where loaded product tankers are hijacked and a small part of their cargo is stolen. But during the time that the vessel is under the control of the hijackers, usually 7 to 10 days, a lot of violence is used, particularly against the senior officers on board. The cargo is stolen, and then the vessel is released with the crew. A very quick example is on the 5th of September, a drifting chemical tanker in Lagos anchorage was attacked by pirates. The master reported to our piracy reporting center. We got in touch with the owners who confirmed it. We went back and we informed the Nigerian Navy. We spoke to them a number of times, used a lot of support from other agencies to help in this, and eventually the Nigerian Navy responded and the vessel was taken back without firing a shot, which was a good success. Most of these attacks take place at night, and which brings me really to the real area of concern, which is Somalia. Commander Offit has put up a very good slide about the trend of the attacks, so I will not try to speak about it. I couldn't. His slides were much better than mine. But today, the picture looks like this. The attacks have extended into the southern Red Sea and very close right up against the Gulf of Hormuz, which is astride the main energy routes for all vessels carrying oil and gas out of the Arabian Gulf, which should be a matter of concern to countries all around the world. In the southern Red Sea, you have particular challenges. There are a lot of small islands. There is the issue of international waters. Most of these waters are territorial waters with the countries concerned. There are dense fishing fleets, very difficult to identify a pirate vessel well in advance until it shoots out from a cluster of ships and the little craft begins to approach the vessel. Sometimes it is a fishing vessel or some other vessel and not a pirate vessel, but very difficult for the master or the security team on board to properly identify if it is a pirate vessel or not. Most of the attacks in this area take place during the daytime, particularly at sunrise and other times. And the way they do it, of course, is that they go very far away from the Somali coast, as Commander Offit said, and the way they do it is with motherships, used to be dhows, and then in 2011, 2012, they realized that they were holding a lot of merchant vessels, which gave them much better range and capability, and they used these vessels. But these vessels are much easier to track, of course, and they didn't have much success. So this year, they went back to the dhows, which they are using now to commit these attacks. And the initiative by Marlow and the other EU NAVFOR and the naval authorities with the Dow initiative is absolutely the right thing, right response to something like this in our view. Here is a skiff. This is what the master sees as the pirates approach the ship. The telltale sign, and that's the reason I put the slide up, is that 7-meter boarding ladder. There is no other purpose for a boarding ladder or a ladder of that kind. It cannot be used in fishing as far as we are aware. There is no purpose to it except to board a vessel at sea. And that is really the sign that it is a pirate vessel. It can do a lot of damage to the ship, as you can see there, and a crew member which is caught in that compartment. It's not really a nice place to be. You have very serious consequences sometimes to ships being hijacked, and there have been many cases where vessels have become total losses whilst they wait for release in Somalia. And here is a case where a vessel was boarded by pirates. They set the ship on fire, and it became a total loss. But as Mr. Giorgio said, and everyone else I'm sure on the panel will echo, the reason why we are here today, why we are talking about piracy, is really because of the people on board the vessel. Everything else, the damage to the ship, the damage to the cargo, the loss of the vessel, for all these, there are commercial solutions. You have insurance policies, other things which will solve the issue. But where there is damage to an individual, and many of these people will come traumatized after spending 6 to 8 months in captivity by the Somali pirates, that there is no commercial solution. And some of these effects on this can be very serious. There are organizations like the Save Our Seafarers and the Maritime Piracy Humanitarian Response Program, which try to assist in this and have done a lot of very good work. The MPHRP has put out a training manual to train and prepare seafarers when they go into these waters. We are the only industry which does not do this on an organized basis. In the airline industry, the crew and the pilot and others are trained to deal with stressful passengers or other stressful situations, including a hijack. At sea, we don't do it to our seafarers, and we send them out there. And when probably the first time they face something like this is when they are attacked or boarded by the pirates. It's no wonder that people on board make mistakes, and then that leads to further violence against them. On the 3rd of August 2011, a Washington Declaration was signed by a number of flag states. There are now further flag states which have added to this, in which they agree to share information on the humanitarian cost of piracy. This information is provided to the IMB Piracy Reporting Center. We remove all reference to the name of the ship, the name of the owners, or the crew members. We aggregate this information and then feed it back to anyone who wants to use it for training purposes, to learn lessons from the experience so that the seafarers on board can be better prepared. Why do we do this? Because as a result of this initiative, we prepared and released our first report on the human cost of piracy, along with the organization with which we partnered on this, the Oceans Beyond Piracy program, in June this year. And there were some very interesting findings which I'd just like you to think about. I'm sure this morning all of you had a very good night's sleep in your own room. You had a nice shower, you changed your clothes, and you have come here today. Consider if you are hijacked on board a ship in Somalia, the only clothes you have is the ones that you're wearing when the vessel was hijacked. Everything else is stolen. So you remain in that for a very large part of the 6 to 8 months that you are in captivity in the heat of Somalia. You are given very little options to shower or to go to the bathroom. In fact, you are all usually held in the wheelhouse on the ship, everyone together. And if you want to go to the bathroom, you ask for permission to go to the bathroom. Most of the time, the permission is given. Sometimes it is not given so easily. So people keep bottles and other things to help themselves. Now, that is not the reason why seafarers go out to sea, to be treated in this way. And this is just one part of it. There are a few cases, fortunately, where crew members are subjected to torture, to completely unacceptable abuse by these young Somalis, usually on cut, on the drug that they have. Now, this is not part of their employment contract, and we owe a duty to get these people back. There are, at the moment, 9 vessels, 127 crew in Somalia. 27 of them are held on land. Much more difficult to negotiate their release or to know in what conditions they are kept. There is one vessel which has been mentioned today, which has been there for over 30 months, actually. There are a number of crew members who have died on board the vessel. So these are the real challenges for the shipping industry. It would be a terrible indictment upon us if we did not make every effort possible to get these crew members back, despite the fact that these few rogue ship owners have completely avoided any liability that they owe to their crew. I must say here that the vast majority of ship owners whose vessels get hijacked, They do everything that they can to get their crew back. And eventually they do get the crew back at some very considerable cost to them. But it is a few of these rogue ship owners who give shipping a bad name. Let me leave that at that and move on to one of the important things in the response to piracy is really the reports of an attempted attack. In some cases, the report of an attempted attack is more important than the report of an actual hijacking. Once the vessel is hijacked, it moves to the next phase of its operation. But the attempted attack, the report of the attempted attack, is very important because it means that there is a skiff, a pirate skiff somewhere nearby, possibly. There is possibly a mothership nearby, which is vital information for the navies and for other ships coming down to know so that they can help avoid it. Till about a year and a half ago, we believe that most of the reports of suspected vessels were suspected attacks were being passed on to the authorities, to the navies, to UKMTO, and to ourselves. But in the last 18 months, we find that these attacks, these reports have reduced significantly. And we understand that the reason is perhaps because the rules, the contract between the owners and this armed team on board perhaps does not allow this information to flow out from the vessel. Perhaps there is a fear of liability. I don't know what the reason is. It is not important, but we should really find a way to, with the private maritime security industry, the ship owners, to pass this information in some way, perhaps on the condition that the information is anonymous. And so that it is the detail of the skiff and the mothership which is nearby, which is vital for the next ship coming down towards that area. And we owe it to the rest of our colleagues going through these waters to pass this information on. It's something that we need to work on. Fewer ships are reporting these attacks. The response, my last few slides now, the vital role of the navies. The navies play an absolutely essential role in the fight against piracy. There are things which the navies can do, which no one else can do. Private security, armed security can't do, the ships can't do themselves, like interdicting suspected motherships, removing their weapons, arresting the pirates on board, detaining them, even if they're allowed eventually to go back, but denying them the space in which to operate. This is something that only the navies can do, to analyze the attacks, to prepare good advice to the ships. And we need the navies there. There are very few naval assets there compared to the task before them. It's vital that they remain. The private armed security, which others will be talking about, so I will not go into it. All I'll say is that they have played a critical role in the avoidance of the hijacking of ships. We know that from the reports coming to our center. Many more ships would have been hijacked in the last 12 months if private armed security was not on board those vessels. And of course, the best management practices, which has already been referred to. The navies, on the 24th of October, the Dutch warship Rotterdam destroyed a pirate mothership very close to the Somali coast. And it is these kind of actions which really act as a deterrent against the pirates. Or the navies which took a vessel back after the pirates had got it, so they don't get their prize. The Indians did an interesting thing in the first quarter of 2011. They sank 4 motherships. There were casualties, both on the side of the pirates, but also on the side of innocent hostages on board the ships. But the effect of it was that since the 31st of March 2011, there have been very few attacks very close to the Indian coast, allowing shipping a safer corridor to go up the Indian coast before they have to cut across into the Gulf of Aden or go towards the Arabian Gulf. And it has worked. The message has hopefully got through to the pirates. Now, my last 2 slides. What do we do with this? It's important to remember that the Oceans Beyond Piracy wrote a report on the economic cost of piracy, in which they estimated that the cost was between $6.6 and $6.9 billion per annum. What is very important is that they estimated that 80% of this cost is borne by industry. Only 20% is borne by governments. 99.5% of this cost is a recurring cost, which we can expect to incur again and again each year. It's a crazy way to solve a problem where we are only investing 0.5% of our expenditure in a long-term solution to piracy. And where does this long-term solution lie? In our view, it lies along the coast of central Somalia, where the pirates are taking their ships and holding them for 6 to 9 months with impunity. No one can interfere. If we remove that space from them, the Somali piracy model will be dead, because they could not. What is the point in them hijacking a ship if they have no place to take it to? And that is where the focus, in our view, should be, to create jobs and to create employment along the central coast of Somalia, not in Somaliland or Puntland, which already are functioning parts of Somalia, but in this part of Somalia where it is critically needed. And if we do that, then we think we will destroy the Somali piracy model as it now exists. And so finally, to conclude, the Piracy Reporting Center, you would expect me to say this, is very valuable. It provides to the industry a resource where no information is kept back. You have everything that we collect, vital for you to make your own risk assessment on how you need to conduct your shipping operations. The navies are absolutely vital. In this time of financial crisis and countries thinking of cutting their cost, we should be lobbying very hard to make sure that the number of naval vessels actually increase, not decrease in this area. It's absolutely vital if we are to keep these waterways relatively safe. And of course, it's very important for the redevelopment of central Somalia in order to destroy this piracy model. Thank you very much.
Thank you.